our user group, but that's cool. That's even better. Okay, and today we will have Jakub Stefaniak, who will tell us about his journey to CTA, and we'll be able to ask some questions. So as for agenda, we'll have a short community news section, then a word from our today's sponsor, Akiva Labs, and then it will be over to Jakub. All right, so for community news, there is a new certification in town that is called Salesforce User Experience Designer. Uh, if anyone has anything to share about this one, probably someone already tried to pass it. Feel free to jump in, because I just know that there is this certification.
Georgi has passed this education.
I took it on like day 2 or 3. If you've worked on UX engagements in the past, it's pretty straightforward. If you're new to the world of UX, I think it would be pretty complicated. So, but I mean, I think UX is a pretty important topic. You know, how do you make the system work well for your users and customers? So, not exactly relevant for CTA, but I think just as a general Salesforce professional, it's a good one to do. So.
Okay, I'll probably try it next couple of months. And conferences, they already mentioned today. Trailhead Days is happening on June 23rd. Not sure if there is anything interesting this year. And for non-Salesforce conferences, only applied for Russian speakers, there is a Tech Lead Conf at the end of June. Feel free to visit it and to drop by on my session. And we always searching for content and ideas, and feel free to contact us in case you have anything in mind. And don't forget to leave feedback after the meeting. And our today's sponsor is Akiva Labs. So thank you guys. And if anyone, I'm not sure if Maxim Zeman here, or probably Jakub, you will speak something about the Akiva Labs.
Sure, if Max is not here, I've seen that he was joining, but I'm happy to say a few words. So generally, Akiva is Salesforce partners with working in product development outsourcer niche, which means that our primary focus in building applications for the app exchange. For developers, it's usually nice because, like, when you think about standard Salesforce projects with lots of Indian code and legacy problems and so on App Exchange, is never happening. We are just most of the time building new apps from free, and everything is nice and easy when you are building a new app. So it's a good reason to consider Akiva as your career path.
Okay, thank you. And now over to you, Jakub. And one last thing, I forgot to ask you to start recording.
Sure. I see that is a...
We already done recording, so...
Oh, okay, perfect.
Awesome. So let me share my screen. Hope that you now see my slide, right?
All good.
Yeah, we do.
Awesome. Yeah. So first of all, thank you for the invitation. It's a big pleasure to make this short presentation for your user group. Fact that, you know, it's summer, it's hot, you have probably lots of other stuff, football matches to watch and so on, and you are still on the call. It's a great experience of your commitment. So thank you for being here. Short disclaimer that I'm not working for Salesforce, and all stuff which I'm going to speak about is either my personal experience or some publicly available information which may not be aligned with official Salesforce view on some topics. And I've signed, as every person going for the exam, NDA, so I'm not allowed to answer any specific questions about my scenario, my Q&A session, and so on. So yeah, during our Q&A session, please keep in mind that I cannot tell you everything. In terms of my journey to CTA, of course, I have a typo in the first date because it was 10 years ago, and my brain decided to change it because 2011 was like super old, long time ago. So I started my first job as Java developer. I was meantime doing my studies, so both bachelor and master degree in computer science. Additionally, I finished IT project management postgraduate studies. So in Poland, we have a concept that after you finish main studies, you can take like 2 extra semesters in some related area. As part of my early years, I tried to go away from writing code and be a business analyst. I've spent 1 year being a business analyst, and between you and me, it was kind of disaster. So like after 1 year, I was missing this technical part of my life, writing some code and generally being close to the technology. And especially sitting like all day on meetings with people, I felt that from one hand, it's very exhausting. On the other hand, when I was working as Java developer, I was missing contact with the end users, and like my first project in my first companies were most of the time affected by the fact that developers were working quite far from the requirements. And even if you build awesome application, but nobody is then using it, it was a little bit frustrating for me. And after seeing that being a business analyst is too far from technology, I started to think, okay, so I should maybe find some way, some technology to generally be able to work closely to the customers, easily deliver some real value to them, have better contact and so on. And it's how I found Salesforce. Generally, I started with learning it on my own. That time it was no Trailhead, so mostly by doing some Pluralsight, Udemy, and stuff like that. And luckily, at the beginning of 2015, I was able to find my first job as Salesforce developer. After more or less 4 years of doing development, freelancing, consulting, and so on, and in few different companies, in the first part of 2019, I moved to a company where generally I started to be technical architect and technical manager. So it was like ESV partner doing their own application. When I stopped writing so much code on my own, from time to time I was still picking developer tasks, but mostly I was focusing on both architecture and governance. And in the same year, 2019, during the Dreamforce, I've met Sebastian from Flow Republic, who is CTA mentor. And that time I made decision to start my preparation and try to pass the exam. The whole preparations takes me around 8 months. So in the end of July last year, finally I passed the exam. And I put Akiva logo because like people sometimes ask what you can do after the exam, how the life looks like if you do not have to study every day. And like now in Akiva, I started helping other colleagues from the company to prepare for their CTA exam. And generally, as part of this journey, there's lots of governance related to architecture. So for example, we are now establishing architectural review board as a process for checking new projects in company and so on and so on. So I have opportunity to spend this experience and help with building more mature architecture governance and generally department for the architecture. In terms of the preparations, I have like 1.5 year break after passing my last system architect certificate. It was a little bit too long break because to pass CTA, you have to be up to date with all certificates which are included, which means that after this quite long break, I had to go through all of the topics again and again. I decided to go for a training program from Flow Republic, mostly because in that time I was not working with any CTA, and it's quite important to have somebody who can guide you how to prepare. So generally explain you what are the real expectations. So I did all 6 practice exams with my CTA mentor from Flow Republic, and I did exams with 3 other CTAs. As part of this preparation, I was joining on daily basis every day at 7 a.m. We have a study group with 3 colleagues, and now all of us passed the CTA exam. And additionally, on the weekly or bi-weekly basis, I was joining CTA study group from Benelux, where I met few of you. So yeah, it was a great and very important part of my preparations. Additionally, I went for Salesforce CTA preparation workshop. it's a good place to start if like it is a first call when you are starting to think about CTA. If you already did few mocks and generally you are familiar with the exam formula, probably it's not going to be super valuable because like stuff on this workshop is very basic and like it's possible of course to get all of this knowledge on your own. But as I went for it quite early, I was satisfied with overall experience. And during these 8 months of my preparation, I've solved 32 mocks exams, and I even write one by my own because, you know, it's just the exam at the end. You have to understand what is inside, how the scorecard looks like, and based on this, writing your own scenario is probably the best way how to memorize lots of stuff. And I had some kind of the diary or logbook when I was putting not like daily amount of hours which I spent of my preparations. And in total, it was like more than 800 hours, which sounds a little bit crazy. So let's explain why this 800 hours. And generally, it's not like, I'm the most stupid guy in the room. If you ask other CTAs, the average of 1,000 hours is what people put on preparation to pass. The exam is quite simple. You get the scenario. You have 3.5 hours if you're English non-native speaker to solve it. Then you have 45 minutes to present it. So you can, during your preparation part, build some kind of the architects, draw some diagrams, put some notes for yourself, and then you have 45 minutes to present your solution. And then after a short break, you have 1 hour for Q&A session. And it's a moment when generally you have to defend your solution, justify some things. Maybe you can change something if you will see during Q&A session that your solution is not working. And nowadays, to generally go for the exam, you have to first of all pass something called review board evaluation, which is like a practice scenario with 1 judge. And after you pass it, you can go for the real exam. During the real exam, you have 3 judges. The scenario, I put screenshot from one of the examples. Generally, it's between 8 and 10 A4 pages, full of text, full of fun. There is always some kind of the story about some hypothetical company who would either like to start using Salesforce or maybe they are already using Salesforce. You have information about their business, about their problems, their current situation, their future plans, who is going to use the system, and about specific business process requirements. It would be very nice in the real life to have this kind of the quality of materials when somebody sent to you request for a proposal. Usually, of course, with customers, you do not expect to have so good quality, but this scenario, it's a little bit artificial, but if you are working closely with architecture, it's not like something totally from the other planet. And as part of this 3.5 hours, when you have time to solve it, you are expected to draw a few diagrams. So I put here data model and system landscape, which that time in the last day I was drawing in the PowerPoint. Generally, there is well-defined list of what kind of the artifacts you are expected to present. For some points, like for example, for this business process requirements, you are just expected to explain how we are going to solve it and why you are going to solve it that way. So for example, if we take a look on the bullet, CSS would like to verify the validity of the driver license in real time. In this one sentence, we have to find requirements to build some kind of the integration. We know that we have maybe one Salesforce orgs, few different government websites to validate the driver license. So probably we would like to use ESB to orchestrate the integration. What will happen if, for example, one of these websites is down? Can it be really a real time, or maybe it should be some kind of the callback from the system and so on? So like based on every sentence, every word make some meaning. You have to come with an optimal solution for the full scenario. And then somebody is going to judge your solution. Salesforce officially says that there are like few sections, and you have to pass every section to pass the exam. If you fail 1 or 2 sections, you can take something called exam retake or section retake and generally have another exam just in this section which you failed. If you fail more than 2, then you have to retake the full exam. Some of these sections, like data, integrations, security, solution architecture, system architecture, and dev lifecycle, are related to your technical knowledge. And there is one more section about communication, which, as you see on the diagram, is the holistic section, because it's not enough to be smart, it's not enough to be able to solve scenario, but a big part is how to present it and how to defend your solution. As developers, and as you've seen, I was developer for most of my life, some of these sections, like for example, dev lifecycle, are quite easy, and it's kind of obvious for us that we are going to use Git or other source code repository. It's obvious how CI/CD works, why generally you need to have tests, and so on. So for a section like that, probably you are not going to spend so much time on your preparations. On the other hand, there is a section about solution architecture. Salesforce idea is that for solution architecture, you should use a little bit of programmatic solution like Apex or Lightning Web Components, but whenever possible, you should recommend declarative tools, like for example, flows. And if you are just developer and you never made any point and click stuff, then probably as part of your preparation, you will have to spend quite lots of efforts to learn about all of these declarative solutions. Another Salesforce diagram saying what are the prerequisites for the exam says that generally we have this 5 designer exam, platform developer, a builder, maybe community consultant, maybe certified administrator. I put additionally Sales Cloud and Service Cloud because from my experience, it is not possible to pass this exam if you don't know standard Sales Cloud and Service Cloud feature. There are just so many potential questions that it's not enough to be a good ISV developer who is building always apps with custom code to even try pass the exam, in my opinion. And as you see, Salesforce diagram looks differently, so it's this part from disclaimer that is not official Salesforce sentence. I would add even more to this. There are many other Salesforce products which theoretically you can use during your solution. Nobody expects you to be an expert with CPQ or field service lighting, but generally you should be able, based on the requirements, make decision. Is it worth to bring Salesforce CPQ or Salesforce Marketing Cloud? Or let's say you have simple requirements about sending emails. So you can send them from Salesforce via standard email alert. You can bring some App Exchange package, or you can bring Marketing Cloud. And based on different requirements, you should be able to make the good decision. If you have reporting requirements, you should be able to find where is the border between using standard Salesforce reports and when it's required to bring Tableau CRM, for example. So it's quite lots of knowledge to prepare before we are ready to start preparing for the exam itself. And it means that generally it's not only Salesforce stuff. This part with knowledge and Salesforce-related technology, so your technical skills, is a required entry point which allows you to start trying to solve scenarios. The second thing, next 45 minutes, is your presentation skills. The whole exam is in English. You are going to present in English. And if you are not English native speaker, it is not easy. I have a feeling that 8 months of preparation make extremely good impact on my English communication skills. But I was communicative English speaker at the beginning. If you are not, maybe it's good to think what you can do with this. There are non-Salesforce groups like Toastmasters where you can go and practice your presentation skills in English. So it's something worth to consider, and I was doing it for a few years in both Polish and in English. Another thing, your Q&A session. So a moment when somebody is asking questions about your solution and somebody is asking you to change your solution on the fly because he's asking you to change some assumptions. So it's called thinking on your feet, and generally the whole communication, so ability how to explain and justify lots of stuff. And last but not least, stress management. Let me be clear about this. CTA exam, it's not really comparable with any exam from university or from the high school. If you are putting on preparation like 8 months or 12 months, it's going to be tough for you, both to just put this preparation time, but then you have like close to your exam date always a feeling that if you will fail, in the best scenario, it's going to take you another 6 months until you will have another possibility to try to pass. And it's extra 6 months on studying every day. So it's super high stress environment. And literally as part of your preparation, if you do not do stuff like meditation, probably it's good idea to start trying to do it, because if not, like if you will have a moment when you are reading the scenario, you have no idea what is it about, you don't know what to do. If you have some ability how to calm down, start taking deep breaths and so on, it can save you from failing the exam. So stress management definitely, in my opinion, is one of the most important parts of the preparations. There are some general tips. First, that you should really learn stuff which are required in terms of application and system architect certificates. And it is not, unfortunately, enough to pass them. You really need to understand what is scope of the certificates, because you need this knowledge to be able to solve the scenarios. Mandatory part is finding a study group. You can ask other people, for example, on Salesforce Architect community. There are, I think, 3 or 4 groups with people who are preparing on the exam preparations together. You can meet with them daily, monthly maybe not, but weekly and so on. But generally, CTA preparations is not something what you can do on your own. It's always some kind of the team effort. The only way how to prepare for this exam is to practice and practice and practice. I know lots of great architects who are not CTAs, because the formula of the exam is anyway quite exhausting, and just being a good architect is not enough to pass the exam. But opposite situation, if you are a CTA, I've never met a CTA who is a bad architect, because after so exhausting studies, generally you are going to have a really nice both knowledge and skills. And last but not least, it's good to find a mentor or some kind of the coach who will help you with this journey. Where to find a CTA? So there are like 3 ways. The easiest is to work with company with some CTA. And probably in this moment, it's the best opportunity to just have lots of time, lots of opportunity to ask, practice, and so on. You can think about PwC, you can think about Accenture, you can think, of course, about Akiva Labs. If you are based in Moscow, is even the best option probably for you. But there are like few options which you can consider. If, let's say, in your company you do not have any CTA and you are not planning to change your job, you can think about Flow Republic. And I decided for Flow Republic training program mostly because I was exactly in the situation that I had no CTA in my company. I was not planning to change my job. And Flow Republic was a good choice. It's worth to notice that generally it's not a silver bullet. I know lots of people from Flow Republic who passed their CTAs, but I think I know more who either failed or didn't accomplish the program, because the main part is your preparations and your time. And there are people who are starting Flow Republic stuff with idea that they are paying few extra euro and you will just get the certificate out of the blue. And when they see that to make real progress you have to put 20 hours per week, they just resign after 1 or 2 months, right? So again, if you work with CTA, if you go with Flow Republic, or if you do it on your own, the main part is your efforts and your study time. And last but not least, there are from time to time activities, like for example, in this year we have some kind of the fundraising for India related to COVID situation, where you can just give donation for this charity purpose and make practice exam with one of CTA volunteers. I strongly recommend. You can go with me, you can go with other people. It's lots of fun, and then you are doing anyway something good. But of course, it's good to leave it for end of your preparations, because if it's your first contact with CTA topic, you have like months of stuff to prepare, and probably doing mocks with some CTAs out of your company, it's something worth to consider when you are close to the review board and you want really to change yourself and polish your skills. And the most important of all tips, have fun, because like this whole process, this whole journey is really a fun. All of these discussions, the studying time and so on, is not only the way how to pass on the certificate or increase your salary, but it's really the big pleasure because it's the way how you can really grow in terms of your skills, build a very good network with other talented and dedicated people. And like, even, you know, if you take a look on me, 1 year after passing my exam, I'm still doing in my free time mocks with other people who are preparing. I'm still like sitting inside doing this presentation and so on, because it was really fun for me, and I hope that it's going to be fun for you. And that's all what I have on my slide. So going back to you, Nikita.
All right, guys. So basically, if you have any questions, feel free to ask Jakub now. As for me, I have one question. Probably I missed the starting part, but what is the reason? What do you think? What is the main reason for a developer to consider going CTA?
Sure. So I was not sharing a screen for a second, but I have to go back to this. And if you take a look on this Salesforce pyramid, generally, if you are a developer and you are just writing a code, usually you are not going to be as good as it possible with Salesforce platform. Salesforce has so many declarative tools, or ways how to integrate with other systems and so on, that if you are writing only Apex and only creating Lightning Web Components, usually in many cases you probably are going to miss something. And passing all of these certificates, in my opinion, for like senior developer, anyway, it's kind of mandatory, because it's just the knowledge which maybe you do not have to master, but you should be able at least to know what you have to Google from time to time when you have like some specific problems about performance, about sharings, and so on and so on. And if somebody make like a diagram like this with putting this technical architect on the top, first of all, it's putting some suggestion that if you are already on this level, probably it's worth to go and make this last step. Second thing, that generally, you know, for a technical architect, is going to make good impact on your salary. I can just make educated guess because of, if you check like standard.
We lost Jakub, I guess.
Yeah, seems like it. I was thinking like if it's me or Jakub.
It's not you.
And the most interesting topic, like salary.
Yeah, I think Jakub.
Let me ping him. I'll let him know that the connection isn't good.
Vitaly, when is your CTA exam? Hopefully you already subscribed for it.
Are you asking Vitaly Makarkin?
Yes, of course, because I know you're like
The Vitaly.
Probably I'm waiting when Georgie passes the exam. I have two options. First one is someone adopt me and start to learn about the Salesforce, or another part is just becoming a mentor. So probably after
Hey,
Georgie.
sorry, some issue with connection. I assume, Nikita, that it cut half of my answer for your question.
Yeah.
So let me maybe start from the beginning. So generally,
Yeah,
the reason why.
yeah, let me put it a bit more specific. So if you take me as an example, so I'm currently a developer holding both application and system architect. What is the reason for what is the reason for developer who already has these two certificates to go for CTA?
Okay, sure. So first of all, the best thing is that as part of this preparation, you are really going to master your knowledge. And like if I think about my situation, 1.5 years after passing the certs, I had still good knowledge about governance and integration because I was doing them, but about identity and access management, I was close to zero level of knowledge. So like CTA is the best way to really master your stuff. Second thing, that even if you are officially a developer, if you are like a senior developer, you usually do not only write Apex code. Anyway, you're going for some meetings, making some decisions, designing something. And even if you do not have official title of the architect in your company, you are making architect-like decisions. And just being CTA is the best way how to prove and how to learn how to make this decision in the optimal way. And last but not least, being a CTA is going to make good impact on your salary, which of course, like it's a nice thing to have and nice thing to consider, especially if somebody from Salesforce make this beautiful diagram and put you here. You can ask yourself, do you have time to just make this last step? And it's like once in your life when you will have few months of study, but at the end you are going to have a new nice badge on your LinkedIn or whatever, and it's pretty nice experience. Hope that did answer your question.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome. Who's next?
Jakub, I have a question for other people. So a lot of other people maybe.
Just quickly, Raman, don't be shy. Don't use this.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Okay. Let Georgi finish and then.
Sure. Thank you.
No, Roman, go ahead.
Okay. So I have two kind of combined questions. How many CTAs do you know, and what are the usual job positions they are taking? Maybe even not right away after CTA, but after a year, after several years. How often do CTAs switch from architect position somewhere else?
Okay, I would guess that I know between 10 and 15 people. In terms of what you can do after CTA, like if you think about what I'm doing in Akiva, generally I'm more now designing how this architect framework works for the company in terms both of CTA preparation and generally architectural review board inside. So it's more like even architectural governance than being a typical TA. Quite lots of people are opening their own companies because especially if you have some time to put extra content on communities and be MVP or something like that, being a CTA is just quality brand, and then you can have fun with freelancing and looking for end customers. If you think about guys who are CTA from like few years, like Donna Popa or Taman, like they're on C-level, like CTO or VP of something. So it's like, of course, it's not required again. You can be a very good manager without having this technical knowledge. But usually in IT, you can either manage people or manage technology. And if you want to focus on managing technology, being a CTA is just the easiest way to prove in the new place that it's like you have all this knowledge which is required to make all decisions in a middle or big kind of organization.
Thank you very much. But and how does this switch usually happens? Like, can an architect start getting into this C-level management, or he has to be a manager who decides to advance technologically?
I would guess that it's mostly related to the company where you're applying, and it's hard for me to be very specific how it happens. But if you are changing a job, looking for something, one of the part of the interview is not only to ask what the company can offer to you, but to ask what you can learn in this company, how you can grow. And if you are already the architect, even if you are not a CTA, I would not be hectic when I'm looking a job to bring this kind of the question and put that you have like ambition to go more into, for example, management, more on something else and so on. Because if you have a very solid technical background, then it's just much easier to do any different kind of the job. So like being a CTA, for sure, it's like opening doors. It's easier to get in the interview, but all doors are open if you are just a good architect, because it means that you have just lots of very unique knowledge about this ecosystem.
Thank you. And continuing this, how often did you hear about situations where architects switch technologies? So someone goes to CTA, and this is kind of the final step of Salesforce. Now I know Salesforce. Everything's boring for me. I switch to something else.
Let me put it that way. About architects switching technology, I know a few people, and a good example is my colleague from my study group, Vinay Sale, who passed his CTA after 3 years of experience in Salesforce ecosystem. He was like architects from more than 10 years in different technologies. He just moved from integration architect into Salesforce architect when he started a job in Canon, and after 3 years, he was able to pass the exam without having any developer experience or any declarative skills. He just studied his stuff, and it was good enough because, first of all, he was a great architect at the beginning. I don't know anybody who moved from Salesforce to different systems. It's probably because like Salesforce currently is still growing technology, salaries in Salesforce ecosystem are pretty well, and so on. But I can imagine situation that after 10 years, for example, Salesforce will start not be as good on the market position as it is today. And I strongly believe that it will be much easier for you as an architect to move to some new potential system architect role than, for example, Salesforce developer to move to other I don't know, sub developer position or something like that. So being architect on this point of view is pretty nice, because if you think about abstract concepts and about soft skills like communication and problem solving, it's not so related to the technology. So your skill set is just very flexible.
Thank you very much. Makes total sense.
You're welcome.
So Jakub, for people that listen to your presentation, they're like, "Wow, this sounds cool." What would be some maybe warnings or considerations to figure out, like, is this really the right thing for you as a person and as a Salesforce professional before you really invest your time and energy into it?
It's a very good question. And I've spoken about it with few other CTAs, and general consensus is that passing the exam is just the result, but starting this preparation, starting learning how to solve the scenarios and so on is anyway a good way how to learn your skills. And I know people who after a few months decided that they do not plan to go for the final exam because it's too exhaustive or it's too stressful or so on, but still they were satisfied that they started this journey, because if anyway you are then going to still work in the system, design some new architecture, design some new applications, work with the customers and so on, even starting this journey can just make your life easy, because you will be just better with your main job.
Makes sense. Cool. And for you personally, what was the hardest part of the whole journey, either content-wise or soft skills or other things?
I would say that from the content point of view, I was developer by heart for so many years. I love writing code, and all these declarative features or all like these extra tools like CPQ and so on, I never put enough respect into them. And you can do something with flaws. Of course, you can point and click and it will work. But guys, we like Apex, right? And when I've first seen that this technical architect, I thought that it's going to be like platform developer 2++. It's going to be super technical. And then when I found that generally it's more like business or enterprise architect, it was a first challenge for me to agree that I have to learn so many new things which I never wanted to learn. And the good thing that at the end, it's really nice to learn this stuff, because for many technical problems, like if you know how to use VLOOKUP, you do not have to make, I don't know, unique fields, populate something, write triggers, right? So I found that at the end, just having understanding of all of these extra tools make my life, even from developer perspective, easier. Learning all of these extra products like field service or CPQ, even if I'm not using them, at least I have something to think about when I'm designing a new product. And like CPQ somehow is a concept, right? So it's like a way how to build a nice application when the business user can declare some, not metadata, but some rules on declarative level. And now when we are building some custom application, you can just take it as a blueprint for your own project.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
If no one asks, I have one more question. How up to date is the program and the exam to the Salesforce releases? Meaning that can there be questions and the expectations to know something from the most recent release or maybe year ago release?
It's a tough question, because like if you check the practice exams which are available on the community, people never publish the solution key for their own exam. Even for the scenario which I prepared, I didn't publish the solution key as well. And the reason is very simple. The scenario exams are quite universal, but the solution key change after every release. If Salesforce adds some new feature, something what was optimal solution half a year ago, now is going to be suboptimal. And if you check, for example, stuff for integration architect certificate, and you compare it to exactly the same exam guide 2 years ago, the answers which were optimal like 2 years ago now are in suboptimal section. So I would expect that if you are going to pass the exam today, you should be able to use stuff which is GA in summer 21. If you will be trying to use something what is beta in pilot, probably it's not a good option, because like Salesforce have all of this safe harbor statement saying that generally you should not use it on the production until it is really GA. But if you will, for example, I don't know, you have some requirements about computer telephony integration, and you are going to suggest using AppExchange product, but it's a use case when nowadays you can use Service Cloud Voice, probably during Q&A session, somebody is going to ask you why you are decided that AppExchange stuff is the optimal solution. So long story short, it's good to be up to date with all new stuff.
Right.
Jakub,
What is with this?
Sorry, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking about this exam keys, you mentioned that there are optimal and suboptimal solutions. Does it mean that the expectation on the exam is that you present multiple options at a time with some kind of preference from your side?
So the expectation is that for every requirement, you suggest one final decision. So for example, if you have some integration, let's say you're sending data from one system to another system. It can be either make on the real time, and then you can use platform events, or you can use outbound messages. Or you can decide to do it on the nightly basis and use some ETL tool and use bulk API. So the expectation is that as the architect, you are always going to give one final recommendation, because your customers are not technical people. They are paying you just to make this decision and take the responsibility. But as part of the exam, you are expected to explain to judges why you believe that your decision is optimal. So a few times you are going to speak about alternatives, about their considerations, and about the reasons which put you to pick this one final solution for a specific requirement.
What if during the discussion you change your mind? Meaning that during Q&A session you figure out, yeah, I kind of did consider this, or this is common in the question, and you say, okay, then in this case we'll do differently. Is it possible to change your mind? Is it like appreciated?
Yes, and it's like, Q&A session, people are a little bit scary of it, but generally Q&A session is still a time when you are getting points. So if you have 7 sections to pass, and during your presentation, you solve like section about governance perfectly, you have enough points to pass it, probably you are not going to get any questions about this section. On the other hand, if you have some suboptimal or some bad solutions, it can happen that, for example, something in your solution is totally not working because you have requirements about visibility, about security, and your data model is just not going to work to solve these requirements. Judges are going to ask you questions, and you can decide to change your solution. Unofficially, I heard that for getting points during Q&A session, you are not going to have a full point. So generally, solving stuff good during your presentation gives you more points and it's better, but it's totally fine to change lots of stuff during the Q&A. The only thing to keep in mind that, you know, if you change something in the solution, it must work together with other parts of the solution. So if I decided that I'm going to write Apex trigger and I'm changing it to validation role, it's easy peasy. But if I decided to use single org strategy and now I'm changing it to multi-org strategy, like it's making impact on everything else, right? Or I'm changing license type for the user. So it's good to be able to adapt if you see that your solution is not working, but it's required to most of the stuff solve correctly during your preparation time.
I see. And speaking about this exam key, does it mean that there is kind of like correct answer to each of the sessions and some suboptimal kind of half correct answers? So is the correct answer always single?
I would not expect, like, you know, it's not official information. Salesforce didn't publish like official solution keys, but the judges are 3 certified technical architects. Some of them are Salesforce employees, some are not. And first of all, they are smart, reasonable people. So I believe that if you have good, working, unexpected solution, they are going to appreciate it. You know, you are not going to get information did you pass or not immediately. If you will have solution which, for example, is based on AWS and Marketing Cloud, and judges don't have expertise in this area, they can like take their time and spend the next week or 2 weeks to verify if what you suggested makes sense or not. So generally, your score is going to come to you after a few weeks. But I have expectation that if you have a good solution which makes sense, then you are going to pass, besides if you find some hypothetical optimal solution from the scorecard or not.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Sorry, I have a question related to some niche products that you may probably have no even access to, like Marketing Cloud or Pardot. During your preparation, how do you solve these some such kind of issues, like lack of experience with some certain modules of Salesforce? Because you may, even if you are implementing, for example, Service Cloud, you may have no experience with CTI integration, for example. Sometimes it's unnecessary, or even you are not able to access to Marketing Cloud because you are working on the company that hasn't purchased this module of Salesforce, or even if you are working on the partner company, it's necessary to comply with some points of the agreement to get an instance with Marketing Cloud. So how do you solve this kind of issues during your preparation?
Sure. So first of all, lucky for us, Trailhead is a great place to find lots of knowledge. And for Marketing Cloud, for field service, for CPQ, what you can learn from Trailhead is more than enough to pass the exam. You are not expected to be an expert in terms of implementation of Marketing Cloud. And for example, I've never used Marketing Cloud on my own. Of course, I've seen some videos, few colleagues made for me some presentation on the live org to like show me something, but I never click anything in the user interface. And my level of knowledge about Marketing Cloud is, first of all, I know what are the modules like advertisement studio, social studio, and so on, and what are the main use cases and limitations. And from the CTA perspective, I'm able to recommend when sending emails from Salesforce is good enough, and when it's time to start sending pixel perfect emails with millions of emails per day, so then Salesforce is not enough. And usually you have like 3 options to consider: random app exchange product, marketing cloud, or Pardot. And like if you focus on this main skills and limitation on every product, it's something what you can definitely learn without putting your hands dirty inside. And I would even do not recommend to trying to do this, because as the architect, like to learn, I don't know, how to implement field service on your own, we are going to spend like, I don't know, 2 weeks, maybe 1 month, because it's not easy stuff, right? And it's the different perspective, different level of knowledge comparing to what you are expected to learn. Awesome, guys. I see that we have a few more questions on the chat. So not sure, Nikita, how do we proceed? Would you like to moderate, or we are asking guys to just unmute and...
Yeah, guys, those who write questions on the chat, please don't be shy. Just jump in and ask them with voice, if you're able. If you're not, ping us in the chat.
We have one question: how many years you recommend for learning to become CTA? It's a tough question, like, because you never start exactly in the same place, and there are people like the CTA who I mentioned before, Vinay, who passed CTA 3 years after starting their Salesforce journey. But firstly, they were doing architecture for 10 years, and they have like overall 20 years of IT experience. So it's totally not something to compare to somebody who just started being Salesforce developer. It's his first job ever. He just finished, I don't know, high school, and then you are 23, and after 5 years in Salesforce, you want to pass this exam. Personally, I have a feeling that Salesforce say that you should have something like 6 to 8 years of Salesforce experience. It's a little bit high expectation. Like, I passed my exam after 5 or 6 years, and I had the feeling that it was good enough. But it's mostly depend what kind of the projects and what kind of the experience do you gather during these 5 years. Because if you spend even 8 years working in one company and writing Apex classes, then probably still you have lots of new stuff to learn during your preparation.
Yeah, thanks, Jakub, for the answer. Okay, I'm Rishabh. Okay, who texted you?
You're
Okay.
welcome.
So Jakub, yeah, I am having around 2.5 years of experience as a Salesforce developer. Okay. So I want to know, like, do you provide some classes to like become CTA in the coming years or something?
Like, I'm not doing like public trainings. I'm working in Akiva, and as part of my Akiva journey, generally we have in-house academy for CTA candidates. So you are, of course, very welcome to just send CV to all my colleagues, and happy to help. But if you are thinking about some public classes, you can consider Flow Republic. I'm going to put on the chat link to the website, and it's like a training program where you have like CTA mentors. You make like 6 practice exam with the CTA, but at the end it's mostly about doing classic practice exams. So the whole part with getting this knowledge and preparing how to solve it anyway is mostly self-study, or something what you can do together with other people who are preparing, and you can find them, for example, on Salesforce Architects community.
Okay. Thanks, Jakub.
You're welcome.
Question. Hello.
Okay,
This is Joey, by the way, from Manila. Regarding your preparation, I think it was 8 to 12 months, right? You mentioned, am I correct, 4 hours per day? Is that like fully concentrated and guided training? Like, of course, there's somebody actually telling you what to focus on, right? In terms of what topics you should be focusing on, which you should not care too much about. Is that right? Is that part of the Flow Republic coaching? Is that right?
No, the main Flow Republic coaching program is doing practice exams with your CTA mentor, and you did 6 practice exams. So like literally, it's just the way how you can challenge yourself and verify where do you stand with the preparation. The whole like 4 hours per day or something like that, it's your private study time. So like with 3 other colleagues, we decided that a good way for us to like motivate each other and verify our knowledge is to meeting like 4 of us every day at 7 a.m. of my time. One guy was from Australia, so it was like 3 or 4 p.m. for him, and like, you know, in that way, during these morning meetings, we speak about some potential topics, and then during the evening or during my work, if I had possibility to pick something interesting for preparation, I was digging into some specific areas. During the weekend, I was solving like practice exam because it takes like 6 hours in a row to from solve to present it. Or I was watching somebody else presentation and making Q&A session for them. And then it was like, you know, ongoing process. So Flow Republic really is not going to give you this knowledge. You have to somehow learn this stuff together with your study partners or some colleagues. And Flow Republic is the way how to check how close you are to be ready for the exam.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I see Elena has posted a question. Elena, can you ask it with voice? Okay.
Elena, would you like to ask? Okay, yeah.
Okay, so the question is how thoroughly we should know different app exchange solutions and external third parties or libraries to make decisions on the exam.
That's a very good question. And expectation is that if you are going to recommend something, you should know how it works and what are the limitations. And to give you an example, if you never use CPQ, you are going to think always when you see requirements about discounts or some price rules that is scenario for CPQ, right? Because CPQ is configure, price, quote, which is not true. CPQ generally have all of this data model for discounts, but the most important part is that it's a tool for the sales rep. The sales rep is using some user interface to generate quotes. And if you have like requirements to automatically generate some discounts, there is no Apex trigger who can help you with this, right? So it means that you should be able to understand what are the main use cases, what are limitations, maybe what is the data model. If, for example, you have scenario when you are going to use document generation in signature, you should understand how the concept works. So how this security and trust is established, where to store information, how to validate the signature. If you have a, I don't know, payment gateway online, again, there is some integration. There is some place when to store some PCI data. You are, as a customer, you are expecting that shops are not storing your full credit card number, right? So there is some way how to make it secure, and you should be able to understand and explain main concepts related to particular apps and make a recommendation, is it really going to solve this particular scenario or not? Awesome. Do we have any more questions?
I have a couple of more questions. One simple question on the exam process. If you can use any materials or internet, at which stages, and like, should you remember things by heart, for example, certain limitations?
Yeah, so personally, it's one of the things which for a long time I was saying that is the most stupid in this exam, because you are not allowed to use any materials. Of course, you do it online, you have access to the virtual machine and you are solving it either on paper on this virtual machine, but you are not allowed to Google anything and stuff like that. From my current perspective, I have a feeling that it's a little bit even helping, because it puts extra efforts to memorize lots of stuff. But if you will try to solve the scenario and meantime Google some limitations and so on, it's going to take much more of time. And anyway, solving in 3.5 hours, it's very tough. So like fact that you have to memorize it before the exam probably make it easier to pass the exam if you did it really. And you know, like at the end, when you have your exam date, nowadays you can pass it virtually, so you are obligated to have some external camera. And even somebody asked me, okay, so is it possible to print some cheat sheet and put on your wall and the camera doesn't catch your wall, right? Theoretically, maybe it is possible, but like, how much stuff you can print on your wall, like with normal letters, 5 pages A4. So guy, if you are preparing for something from 8 or 12 months, believe me, you are going to memorize all of these numbers. What is the, I don't know, file storage limit? What is the platform events limits? And you are going to memorize not because it's like super hard work and you are going to like on history class, read the book and memorize. If you did like 20 or 40 practice exams with 20 up to 40 Q&A sessions, people are going to ask you about these dummy numbers many times. And after end of your preparation, when you will be close to be ready, you are just going to remember all of these funny numbers.
I see. Thank you. And one more question, again, regarding the employment. You mentioned about CTAs from Salesforce at the exam and not necessarily at the exam. How do they get there? And are there Salesforce employees getting CTA or people with CTA get into Salesforce as an advantage?
Unofficially, I heard that around 50% of global CTAs are working in Salesforce directly. And like, it's hard for me to answer because I never applied for working to Salesforce. Like in my country, in Poland, generally, there is no possibility to work as the architect. Salesforce, as a big company, is probably not interested to having B2B relationships. So I don't feel like a right person to answer it, but somehow it happens that many CTAs feel good in working and staying in Salesforce. So probably if you are Salesforce employee, they're going to help you with your preparation. You are for sure going to have mentor and so on. But after passing the exam, I can believe that is something what you can consider as well to go and work in the mother company.
Yeah, maybe I can share some details. So I'm a Salesforce employee going through the internal CTA program. And we have a program that's not the same as Flow Republic, but very similar concepts. You have a mentor. You go through mocks with CTAs in the company. They kind of explain to you what kind of things how to answer during Q&A, this kind of stuff. So as an employee, in an architect position, like a customer-facing architect position, you're expected to start working towards your CTA. We have a lot of architects. A lot of people don't go for CTA, but it's kind of like an optional thing that's recommended. And if you're interested in joining Salesforce, CTA is obviously a big thing to boost your resume and make you look more attractive as a candidate, but it's by no means a prerequisite. So I would say it's kind of the same as being an external person. I mean, if you're interested in becoming a better architect, then CTA is good, whether it's for a job or for joining Salesforce or whatever. So.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, we're almost out of time. We have one more question in the chat, and so can you give some 5 inputs on Velocity CPQ compared to Salesforce CPQ in terms of scalability, maintainability, and adaptability to different industries to cover business processes?
Luckily, it's a short answer. I can't. I have no idea about the Velocity CPQ. And if you think about the CTA exam scope, it is really focused on the core platform. And as the core platform, Salesforce understand Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Community Cloud, or whatever is this new name. I'm not so up to date with the Salesforce naming, and stuff which is somehow related. So as somehow related, the CPQ, Field Service, Marketing Cloud, it's how we are going to extend the standard Sales Cloud / Service Cloud. But there is lots of different products like Health Cloud, for example, or Velocity, which are a little bit too far comparing to this standard core platform. And it's not official information, but from my experience and my knowledge, they are not part of the exam, because when I ask the person who is program manager responsible for this whole CTA certification, she told me that generally they want to keep the credibility of the certificate somehow comparable. And if you will now ask question about velocity CPQ, it means that the CTA who passed in 2021 is going to have much broader knowledge comparing to guy who passed in 2017, right? So adding like small stuff like field service generally, which started to be part of the core platform makes sense, but adding health cloud or financial cloud probably it's not going to be part of the exam, never. And the best thing with being CTA that generally you have to learn loudly how to say that you don't know something. So yeah. Okay, Nikita, thank you a lot.
Yeah, thanks. We're out of time. Thank you, Jakub, for the presentation and the Q&A sessions. It was really great to have you on this meetup. And thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. It was lots of fun and a big pleasure for me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.